Buenas tardes a todos, hermanos y hermanas que nos están viendo esta tarde desde diferentes lugares de América Latina, del Caribe.
From Europe, Asia, welcome to this event of Women in Climate, the Restoration of the Amazonia. My name is Adriana Zúñiga. I'm the coordinator of the program of women from Conservación Internacional, known in English as Women Fellowship, and I work in communications of the project Green Amazonia. To me, it's a great honor and pleasure to be today with you, sharing this space with women who are part of the panel today, who will be sharing with us their experiences and their wisdom from the Amazonia of how, from their role as women, they face all the threats that can currently be summarized as at the tipping point of the Amazonia. Now, without further ado, I would like to start this conversation by quickly presenting the panel. From Colombia, a a woman from the Bitoto people, we have Fanny Cuiro. Her traditional name is Hitona Monagamu. She is the current coordinator of the area of family and women and childhood of Apiac in Colombia. And Fanny is also an advisor of the Council of Women from ACOICA. ACOICA is the coordinator of the indigenous organizations in the Amazon basin that works in the 9 countries of Amazonia. From Bolivia, we have the pleasure of having Berenice Zarataya Paz. Berenice is responsible for gender from the Confederation of Indigenous Peoples from the East Western from Amazonia, with great experience in the path of fight and perseverance in favor of the indigenous peoples of Amazonia and Bolivia. From Ecuador, with Guarani nationality, we have Nemo Andy. Nemo is the leader of Women in Health of the Congeniae. She has a long trajectory in the search of spaces for indigenous women in the defense of equality in rights. We also have from Guyana of Caroline Jacobs. Caroline is a Makushi woman. She was born in a place in the north of Nukumuni called Surama. Caroline has many years experience working in monitoring natural resources projects and also in capacity development projects and empowerment of indigenous women from the Amazonia of her country, Guyana. Then, knowing how this panel is formed, I would like to explain how this panel will work. We have designed a question for each one of these wonderful women today according to their experience and their knowledge. I remind you that you have 12 minutes to answer and develop your thoughts and the answers you want to give for each question. And after that, we will go into a section where we will have questions from the audience to address to you in general and some specific questions from some of you. So now I welcome you all again. Thank you for being with us, for your efforts. I know that many of you ran all the way from Amazonia to find places with good connection. When I talked to Caroline, I was speaking English because she speaks English, and unfortunately, she wasn't able to connect to the interpretation channel. So we now start with a question for Fanny Quiro. Dear Fanny, every time that we hear you speak, that we have the pleasure to hear you speak, we always hear and understand the concept of the well living of indigenous communities becomes relevant in your words. So we would like you to talk to us about the project Cuidadoras de Amazonía from the Ministry of the Environment in Colombia. Tell us what has been your experience, what have been the challenges and opportunities from the role of indigenous women. How do you see this in the future? Please. Good afternoon again. Thank you, Adriana, for opening up this space because these are the spaces that indigenous women need to make visible what we do, especially to make visible what the women of our community bases are doing, because their work and their voices should be heard everywhere, either through other colleagues who are with them, accompany them, like me, that I'm in the coordinator of women, children, and families, or the organization of the Colombian Amazonia for indigenous women. It we have resources to work in Amazonia, and one of the pillars of that program was the program PIBA. Those resources assigned for the indigenous peoples of Amazonia. As women, we fought in order. So this is how, in a space of conciliation that we have with the government, with the regional Amazon table, these are participation spaces where where always women are lacking. Maybe sometimes it's 50 men and 5 women, but now those 5 women now have the capacity to raise their voices and to claim justice for what women should receive in processes such as the Vision Amazonia. This is why, in the space of the Amazonic Regional Table, we proposed that women were requesting 10% of the resources assigned to Vision Amazonia for their own projects addressed to them. And this was a very interesting and important experience because, on one hand, you potentiate the community capacities that they have, that I'm talking about them because it's for the colleagues from the community basis. Their capacities are never acknowledged, and also to strengthen them in their leadership, and also so that all their action, all the ancestral and traditional practices that they have accumulated in the communities can be made visible through this process. All of this can be made visible, and from the government always, so we're trying to contribute to this collective well-being, because as women we always think about the collective. We are the caretakers of life, responsible of the economy of care. So it's to potentiate all this role. It was a wonderful process. We did a calling with our own approach. There wasn't too much rigorosity or demands for them to present proposals. The women got together in Amazonia. It was over 290 proposals that they sent, that they handed in, and then the most feasible proposals were chosen, and 69 proposals are being supported with the resources from Vision Amazonia, and right now this is being executed in the territory. And this has really strengthened women, and we see the women happy reforesting the basins. For example, in San Jose Guaviare, there are beautiful projects of reforestation, because San Jose Guaviare suffers deforestation, and protected areas are suffering deforestation by people from abroad, the country territories. Women with this project of Vision Amazonia, caretakers of Amazonia, they have taken on the role to reclaim those spaces that have been harmed and deforested. So it's not, it doesn't only help to the community well living but of the family, but also the protection, preservation, and restoration of the Amazonia. So women do work together. We don't divide. When we get the opportunity to be able to receive a resource, we're always thinking about collective well-being, and that helps on one hand to strengthen governance in the territories, and also we have empowerment. Many women don't like empowerment because it's a very feminist concept, but it strengthens them in their entrepreneurs and initiatives of their own economy. They also work for that. So today there are some initiatives for enterprises in the territory. They have organized or different artisans with different handicrafts. Some weave baskets, some make pottery. I always say that resources in the hands of women generate magic, and that's what we're doing in the Amazonia. And I'm also convinced from my leadership that an empowered woman with money is also politically empowered. So we must always think about that integral strengthening of women so we can walk hand in hand with men and protect our great Amazonia. There are many things to say, but I think I ran out of time. My 10 minutes are up now. You still have a couple of minutes. Great. 5 minutes. So this is one situation they're mentioning, the project of Visión Amazonia, which was an exclusive opportunity for women. Fortunately, today the male leadership in organizations that are young are more open to allow the participation of women. So now we are also focused on if there are again resources for Amazonia, we will request an important percentage of 25%. It's no longer 10%. We have to increase our percentage because the work we do as women is very important and necessary to be able to preserve the Amazonia, the families. It's not easy for women, for indigenous women of Amazonia, to be civilized because we live in those communities that are far away. There's geographical dispersion and a minimum demographic. So it's very difficult for our women from the Amazon have that voice to the outside. So through those processes and these projects, we can make visible what is being done in our territories. So it's a very so our path to the summit of women from the Amazon basin is saying that to build a collective voice of women so that our voices sound in every scenario. It doesn't matter who represents the women of Amazonia, but we will have a voice constructed collectively. We will also bet on a common agenda. Although we are Amazonic indigenous women, we are 511 peoples and therefore 511 diversities and cosmovisions. I'm from the Bitoto people, but my language, my mother tongue, is different from the language of my friend from the Bora people. Sometimes there are differences in thinking, and that makes all this richer. So this scenario of the summit of women will allow us to weave words, to weave thinking, spirituality, and have a collective voice. Because the women from the Amazons, we now want to be present in the scenarios for debate, exchange, to make proposals about Amazonia. Therefore, it's important that the voice of women from Amazonia go to COP26 and from the results we have from that summit and say what we're doing, describe what we're doing. We are restorators, we spread seeds. I know that beautiful role that women from the communities have, because when I go to the communities, I go to the mountain to collect fruit, to plant seeds. That's the exercise that women do, and we go fishing and we do cleaning. It's such a beautiful environmental exercise that's coming from our origin. That's what women from Amazonia are. Today, we not only have the spiritual grandmothers in the community, the wise women who have that ancestral knowledge of millennia, but we also have political leadership of women. There are women that have been formed in academia, and we must value that and weave these thoughts better of women from the community basis with women who gone to academia and have the possibility to appear in these scenarios. Imagine if there were no women in academia. Well, who would bring the voices of those community bases? Our fight is indigenous leaders of Amazonia. We have two ways. It's always double. Here we have the government right now. I can see the permanent consultation table where we present the interests and proposals of women, and when the government gives us, we say this is a political scenario to make political claims. So we must have double gaze. We must be messengers, conveyors, and the ones who bring the messages from the community basis and bring information back and forth. So it's a two-way exercise. Fanny, thank you very much. You used beautiful words. You have so many beautiful faces that I will build a whole notebook with the phrases from you. Thank you and congratulations for this summit of women that you're organizing in Colombia. The best success in this meeting where you will generate many very interesting things that are decisive for the future of Amazonia and the role of women in this story. Now, continuing with our program, the next question is for Nemo Andy, our sister. Welcome, Nemo, again. Our question is related to what you're working on currently. We know that you are working on a school for indigenous women, and correct me in my reading, it's Antisuyo Warmicuna. So please tell us about the vision of this school. What is this about? When we talk about learning, we're talking about indigenous learning, just like general learning as general concept. What are these opportunities, these tools that school gives to indigenous women, and how this is helping to form the fight for rights against climate change? Good afternoon, everyone, all the colleagues present here. We have a school in Amazonia, Antisuyo Warmicuyo, made up by 100 women from 11 nationalities. This school was born after the women in our organization, we didn't get space to be in organizations or participate politically. So the leaders, some of the leaders organized a group of women speaking out in the meetings of our large organizations, and this is where the school Antisuyo Warmicuna was born. This school is to form leading women from the communities, because we have many women who defend the territory and the communities. We always are very important, but we don't have that space for us within the organizations. So in this struggle, we form this school where we have many women who are in the borders with places of difficult access, so we have organized women together with the leaders of the women, and the guides who defend these territories, and that's where this school was born. Our vision is to form women who are leaders so that they can be the protagonists within organizations and also in politics, because, as I said before, this for us it's difficult to have access to the organizations because of the high index of machismo in our territory. They don't let us go to university because always within the communities they prefer to give education to the son, because women are considered that we should have children and stay at home. And so women are always, we don't want that for us. We want to be free. We want to fly. We want to learn many more things about the world, be owners of ourselves and participate and everything, have our own voice, be leaders, to be face, to be leading our organization. We don't want to be the under president, the under coordinator. No, we want to be the president, the coordinator, bringing our voice and our visions, because we are women who fight, who protect our family and our territory. We protected people against COVID when it came with large mining companies, oil companies, and logging companies came. Women with their children were at the front. When we had the fight in October of last year with the government of Ecuador, it was women who fought with all the children, and they came out from the communities, and we walked to Quito. Women were there with the children, the men were always behind us. So that's the strength of women. So by seeing all the potential that women have, and yet they don't give us that space that we deserve. We fought for it and we deserve it, but yet our male presidents just neglect us because they think that we don't have that value, that strength that we do have as women. So from there, many leaders who have worked and still work, we have constant meetings because we want to have our own large organizations that give us that space that we need as women. We don't want it because we're women, we have to have a lower position, or the fact that we are women means that we have to stay in the kitchen raising kids. No, we thank our parents, but we have to educate more women to go out, be prepared, be free, to be economically independent. So they have to fly, they have to study. There are many women in our nationality in Ecuador don't have that space. Our parents in the communities are farmers, so that space is difficult to open up for us. But there are women who are working so that all of these changes in our society, and mainly in our indigenous territories, because we want this space so that women are the official spokesperson and they are not like the vice president or vice coordinator. When men say, wait, we will talk to you later. We don't want that position. We want to be empowered as women. And that's the school that we are developing. We have 100 students. That school right now, we're working to build our own venue, a place where we can continue to bring in more women, that they can continue to prepare themselves so that in the future those women are leaders that will lead our organizations, and that they will be political leaders at parliament level in the assemblies. That's the vision of our school, that women can be free and be empowered. Thank you for the space.
Todavía tienes un poco de tiempo para contarnos un poco más. A mí me gustaría que me dieras un poquito más detalle en el tipo de programas que ofrece la escuela específicamente. Si puedes darnos unos ejemplos para ilustrarnos un poco más.
Tenemos,
¿Cuánto dura?
Ejemplo, la escuela dura un año. por tiempo de COVID, ahorita hemos alargado porque estuvieron al principio recibiendo 6 meses, nos dio el COVID, entonces como no se podía reunir, ahorita las mujeres estamos trabajando en el territorio con las mujeres en temas de extractivismo, en el tema de género, en el tema de violencia intrafamiliar, en el tema de liderazgo. Entonces todos esos temas tenemos como 6 módulos que se está trabajando. Tenemos un grupo de 25 replicadoras que viajan al interior de las comunidades a reunirse con los estudiantes cada mes, entonces se trabaja de esa manera. Entonces es muy complicado ahorita actualmente sacar a los estudiantes a la ciudad, por eso.
It is very complicated to prepare our students. That's why we are working in these distant areas with the women, with the students, and with our teachers. Perfect. Thank you so much, Nemo. It's so interesting. Thank you for sharing with us. Our next question is for Caroline Jacobs. I'll change to English.
Your turn. Thank you so much for being here. So the question for you, Caroline, will be, so we read your biography. Thank you so much for sharing that. So from your experience, we know that you have been part of several leadership projects in your community. I would love for you today to tell us about your experience in public policies for forest conservation and in the search for government solutions for indigenous people, and how it's been this whole experience from you, considering that you didn't have enough resources since you were a child, as your biography explains, but you were really determined and you find your own opportunities. And how can you as well speak from your perspective of indigenous women from Guyana, from the North Rupununi? Thank you so much. The microphone is yours.
Okay, thank you, moderator. I would also like to thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity to participate in this conference. As a Makushi indigenous woman, I feel very honored and privileged to share my experience here today. It is a knowledge of the women, how we coexist, how we protect and respect the value of Mother Nature. Just as what is so powerful when we could highlight the knowledge of culture that we know. The protection of pure water, the real water source, the pure air that comes from our forests. For too long, we have been kept silent. Now is the time for the indigenous women to impart their intelligence of survival with Mother Nature. If we don't do that, or we don't show it, others will claim what we have as their knowledge because they are putting things on paper. So now is our time, our turn. It is very important to note indigenous people, especially our women elders, play a very important role in keeping our forests intact by passing on their knowledge to their children, by enhancing and supporting the capacity of our people in conservation effort. We will only be successful if it is integrated with other strategies such as disaster preparedness, land use planning, forest conservation, and other national plans for sustainable development. My country, Guyana, still has high forest cover with low deforestation rate, making it one of the last remaining global opportunities to preserve continuous tract of intact forests. However, this is not the case in the rest of the Amazon. Deforestation and forest degradation continue at an alarming rate. The government of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana has embarked on a national strategy towards the establishment of a green economy. The strategy includes the protection and sustainable management of the country's forests patrimony in an effort to reduce global carbon emissions, while also attracting financial resources to foster socioeconomic growth and development. One way Guyana plans to finance a sustainable growth plan is through REDD+ financing, and specifically with result-based REDD+ payments from the Forest Carbon Partnership Facility of the World Bank. Therefore, to effectively include the indigenous communities, there is need to be applications of the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People in terms of free, prior, and informed consent to support knowledge-based and right-based decision-making. Good and effective governance is truly dependent on the inclusivity of all actors, information sharing, and coordination of activities that lead to similar outcomes. A good example is in Region 9, where I live. Several agencies engage indigenous people with the same outcome of improving livelihoods. There is a merging of key stakeholders' engagement, such as Sustainable Wildlife Management, Conservation International, World Wildlife Fund, Visit Rupununi, ICROMA International Center for Rainforest Conservation and Development, South Rupununi Conservation Society, North Rupununi District Development Board, just to name a few. Regarding our Women Empowerment Project in the North Rupununi, must be based on language and our way of life. We have two organizations, the Makushi Research Unit in the North Rupununi and the Wapachan Women Movement in the South Rupununi. I know more about the Makushi Research Unit because my mother has been leading this since it started. So the Makushi Research Unit is made up of representatives from 13 communities in the North Rupununi. It started since 1995, and they created a book about the Makushi way of life called Makushpe Command to Sale, which they, at the moment they have on sale, and have been trained in reading and writing of our Makushi language. This they use to teach children in the schools as a way of preserving language. We are also doing awareness programs about social issues such as domestic violence, human trafficking, gender equity, drugs and alcohol abuse, teenage pregnancy, child labor, sexual abuse. Through their awareness programs, work they have created a big change in the way our communities operate. Women are now taking up leadership positions, such as in the village council, managers of community businesses, women representatives attending meetings nationally and internationally. I learned from my mother in developing my own personal life. She encouraged me to attend capacity building workshops from a young age. It was challenging for me as a young woman, but with the will to learn, today I am stronger and a better woman who has been assisting in the development of my communities. So presently, I am involved with the Makushi Research Unit, youths, women group, young women leaders, to help develop their status of women through education awareness, literacy, and training. So they may have the opportunity to redefine gender roles or other such roles, which in turn may allow them more freedom to pursue desired goals. So in closing, I wish to emphasize that we must take bold action to revise the laws of forests and the biodiversity for the benefit of current and future generations, especially in this crucial time of the global pandemic, where we are losing a lot of our elders who are the brains of the communities. And when our young people are not too keen in learning the old traditional values, there are ways to manage the world forest ecosystem that will ensure the conservation and sustainable use of our biodiversity. At the moment, and local level in Guyana, for example, there is need to be good policies and governance. Critical to the transformation outlined above are effective governance, policy alignment between sectors at administrative levels, land tenure security, respect for the right and knowledge of local communities and indigenous people, enhance capacity for monitoring of biodiversity outcomes, and innovate financial modalities. Ultimately, we need to foster a new relationship with nature, and we can achieve that together. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Caroline, for those so powerful and truly words and very inspirational and very touching as well. Thank you so much for sharing about your story and your ideas and what you are working with, your current project. So thank you for that. Now I will go again to Spanish. Vuelvo al español nuevamente.
So I'll go back to Spanish. Let's continue with our agenda. Now, our dear sister from Bolivia, Berenice. Berenice, welcome once again. We are so happy to have you with us. Dear Berenice, when we spoke about this event, and when we saw your biography, your profile, there was a very interesting point, which is the emergency measures during COVID-19 times. We would like you to tell us about this experience, about your role, what you felt was an opportunity for this bottleneck, whatever you want to share about this matter. Thank you so much. Dear sister, good afternoon. Well, first of all, I want to thank you for this space, for taking me into account, and for this opportunity to share my experience. We as women, we are working on. Can you see me better now? Well, as I was saying, the work that we've been doing as women, as organization, about conservation of our Amazonia, about there is a lot of movement in our area. And there is a notorious deforestation, and I also wanted to tell a little bit more about our rainforest. 50% of our national territory is covered by rainforest. This is a permanent forestal area, and besides that, there is farming area and protected areas, and lately that has changed. The deforestation in Bolivia is quite extensive. Those are the protected, those used to be protected areas that became now agricultural zone for soy, for sugarcane, for coke, for pasture, for to raise cattle, and we have a problem with wildfires, and our indigenous people in the east of country are suffering from that. 2 years ago, we've lost a lot of hectares due to wildfires, due to climate change. So that's what happened to those lands. And also the kind of logging that we have here in Bolivia, in Guarayo, in Velasco, and other areas. And in all those areas, there are indigenous people and communities. And we know that this deforestation in indigenous territory is quite severe. The invaders come and they take our lands and they begin their political maneuvers. And that way we lose our lands. And obviously, due to political manipulation and our government parties, that is happening. So we've been fighting all this time. 30 days ago, we performed a manifestation. We went marching to Santa Cruz. And well, today I had an opportunity to connect to internet and to tell you what we are doing. We are fighting, we are working on that. We are trying to convince our government that this is necessary measures. So while the internet connection is not stable, maybe you are losing me a little bit, but as women, in the framework of this project, we are working on agroforestal systems. And what is the goal? To strengthen the administrative system and the abilities and capacity of families affected by fires, in order to uh, guarantee the well-being of the families of women. This is a historic process, and their contribution is very important for all that we are doing, this initiative and their participation. Our experience that we had, and well, we are still having because we keep working on that. Well, the COVID-19 crisis in indigenous community, it was a whole process because we became a main engine to look for an alternative solution for this pandemic. We decided to look into our traditional medicine, all the plant medicine, the herbs that we have that grow on our territory. And this is women's role. It is and it will be very important for us to elaborate those homemade remedies on a community level. We prepare infusions, syrups, baths, knowing all the properties of these medicinal herbs. As women, we also look into the way to help our families, our communities. Because sometimes we have no pharmacies in our villages, and there is we have to go to other village to get medicine. So in our spaces, we are pioneers on a community level in terms of our work, our master classes, our cultural spaces. During pandemic, we were not able to go out, so we have been working in our spaces, trying to somehow activate the economy. There are a lot of indigenous handcrafts here, and the so those are little resources that had have helped us during those pandemic times. So the only thing we have to do is to keep working and to maintain the economy active. I also would like to use this space to talk about our future generations, especially about our young people. We have to take care of our protected areas, do it the way our grandparents did it. And it is everyone's work, it is everyone's task. We keep harvesting lives, and our future depends on that. There is a differentiate a way of our economical activities in comparison to our males. So as women, we are following those processes, and sometimes our development is quite limited because sometimes people just do not think that we have all the capacities and knowledge. The interaction with different stakeholders and leaders is a during this pandemic. We have been participating in decision-making process in different spaces, and that has shown that women can do for their communities. Well, once again, thank you for this space. Thank you for this opportunity to share this information with you. Well, we will keep working in order to preserve our land, our forest. Thank you so much, dear Berenice. It was very interesting, this possibility, this opportunity to understand from the first hand the risks and the threats that Bolivian Amazonia is facing. Thank you so much for your participation. And now, the third part of our agenda, the Q&A session. As you know, well, there is a there are a lot there are a lot of participants that are currently watching and listening to us. So the first question, facing this current situation related to climate change and all the challenges that Amazonia is facing, what is this tipping point? I will repeat this question in English in order for our Caroline to understand us.
So the question that is for all of you is, if you could leave a message of hope for the future of indigenous generations in the face of the current situation of climate change, threats and opportunities that the Amazon is facing, what will it be? So you can think, and when you're ready to talk, you can please let me know. ¿Quién quiere ir primero? O Caroline?
Who wants to go first?
A message of hope for the future indigenous generations in Guyana to face the current threats that the Amazon is facing, well, what will be that message that you would like to share with the future generations?
Okay.
Okay, Caroline, go.
I would like to share with the future generation is that we have to all work together as Indigenous women to educate, I would say, the public, because that is what they need right now, education, because certain things are happening here in Guyana that even though we have the Amerindian Act to support us, the Indigenous people, certain things are still happening that we cannot really avoid. But if we can go and start to educate these people, show our women power, and tell them that if we do destroy, especially like the mining, the people are mining. I mean, in my region where I am right now, in Region 9, and we don't really suffer that much from mining, but in other indigenous communities, example, Region 1, they need a lot of support in capacity building and in education, especially because they are the ones who are destroying the Amerindian people land there in Region 1. So I would say, as Indigenous women, I would like us to fight to combat climate change. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Caroline. Fanny, Nemo, Berenice,
Fanny, Nemo, Berenice, would you like to share your answers? What is your message for future generations? Fanny? Well, for the future generation of young women, resistance in our territory, resilience, because we cannot forget about, we cannot keep all this negative side. We need to go forward. So my message for the next generation is maintain the cultural identity, to safeguard the language, the traditions, the rituals, the knowledge from our ancestors. This is what makes us strong on our territory, and this allows us be the nations with our own culture, our own traditions, but also study, get other kind of knowledge, academic knowledge, in order to be holistic, intercultural person. This is what we need. The message from both sides to have your own traditional knowledge and academic knowledge, and keep working on the organizational process. As women, we should prepare ourselves. Do not stay in the communities. We have to be that bridge among the communities and non-indigenous society. We have to fight for education, and once we are educated, to help our sisters so that they can study as well. There is a lot we can do for Amazonia so that Amazonia would be alive. Life for Amazonia and Amazonia for life. Amazonia needs to be alive, and we need Amazonia to live. So resistance, a lot of resistance. Thank you so much, Fanny, for those words. Nemo, there's a question I would like to ask you. Taking into account the context that you just explained us in your in your presentation about the reality that your community faces, what can we do as men, as in women, to improve this knowledge? First of all, I think that as women in our organization, we can support other women to follow this path, to become stronger, because we are this is our space. We need to teach our children as well to work with the young people so that women and youth will participate in this fight to improve the conditions and to understand that this space is not only for our male uh, representatives. Men and women can participate as well. And thanks to this organization, we can achieve it. But sometimes, all men always look at us as we were supposed to be behind them. But it is not like that. We need to keep working in our homes to teach our children, to teach the youth. This is our common struggle. This is our common fight, men and women, grandparents, youth, children. It should come from our homes, from those spaces that help us to become stronger, to strengthen our cosmovision, our space, for our women to soar in other spaces, to go to college, to university. It would be so beautiful to see Amazonian women in those big spaces, not only of leadership, but of education. To graduate from university, to have this mission that we as women, as guardians, have in our rainforest, but also to preserve our culture, our history, and also to strengthen the education side, the universities, to shape, to form that space for women so that they could have this opportunity to study in the university, because not many women have this opportunity in Ecuador. Sometimes people think that this fight is only for men, but it's not like that. A few years ago, our sister Guarani sued the government and she was successful. This struggle was successful thanks to this woman. So those spaces that we are having, maybe they are a few, but we as women, we should keep with this fight. Thank you. Thanks, Nemo, for these words. Very inspiring, as well as Caroline's words and Fanny's words. I have a question for Berenice. Sister Berenice, can you tell us a little bit more about decision-making process in the governance process that you have? Since from your biography, we know that you've worked a lot in decision-making process in the governance. Can you tell us a little bit more how, for you, indigenous women in Bolivia, what happens with the decision-making process? How has been this experience for you?
Just give me a second to connect. We can hear you perfectly. For us, it's been difficult to be able to enter into these spaces. We have to make the most of opportunities, and it's difficult for me as a woman because it's an experience that's above what we have in our territory. We have a little bit of fear because I was related with people and I had no idea that I would meet those people and be in that space. And so this has given me the opportunity to have some knowledge and given me the opportunity to present our issues, our concerns, our needs. I also want to thank, because we've been able to get solutions. It's been very wonderful what we do, and we help all the communities. That's why this emergency fund was created in the governance group in order to help people who have been forgotten by the governments. We have used these funds to reach communities that we never imagined we would reach. We've seen that in Bolivia there are spaces of communities that are completely neglected, that nobody knows, and we are able to bring a grain of life. And for us, it's been highly satisfactory. This is a wonderful experience, and the enthusiasm to be able to help and to give a helping hand, a friendly hand to these groups of people who have so great needs. I'm going to share an experience what we have when we went to a territory where they were all infected with COVID. They were on the ground, they were sick, and we, thanks to this initiative, we were able to bring support, medical support, to bring in medicine to help them. And thank God we continue to move forward with this. Berenice, thank you very much for sharing. Caroline,
At the beginning, I mentioned that you work already, or you have worked in empowering women projects. So we would like to listen a little bit more about those empowerment women projects that you have been leading in your community. Thank you.
Okay, so some of the projects that I assist with is like we have this organic garden that we had sponsored through UNDP. I lead in that with training the ladies in doing simple bookkeeping, being a secretary, being a treasurer. I also work with the Makushi Research Units, where I facilitate domestic violence awareness programs with them and simple bookkeeping, and I did capacity building with them. And for the communities, that is what we call the village council. I also work with them to build their capacity in simple bookkeeping, tourism, and leadership skills. I did a lot of work where I went and do like some surveys in Region 1 with this mining people in the mining areas. It was kind of challenging, but it gave me a lot more exposure of the work out there. And then when I came back, I was able to share some of the experience with my fellow ladies. And I have been really vibrant in the community because right now I also assist in proposal writings for getting funding to assist the youths and women. And I'm also passing on that knowledge to them in the communities. And doing this fellowship program, it's really working with the communities that I'm working with. It is also assisting the young people of grasping the historical knowledge of their communities, which they never know. So by doing this, it is really helping the communities and getting to know about their generations, about how they used to live long time. And this is where I am at right now. So at the end, I would be really, after this fellowship, I'm really happy to produce my little booklet and a video to give back to the communities, and really do appreciate CI for allowing me into this program, I would say. And I am really happy for what I'm doing with with the people, and they appreciate what I'm doing. And I will continue as I grow older, as I gain a lot of knowledge, I will continue to share them. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Caroline, for your words and sharing your thoughts with us. It's really interesting everything that you are working with, and that sounds a lot as well. So I think we are women, we are all multitasking. Agradeciéndoles a todas por todo lo
I want to thank all of you for everything you have shared. We have one last question for Nemo, Fanny Berenice. You are part of Congeniae, Nemo, or PIAC, Fanny, and SIDOC, Berenice, that are organizations that are the leaders are mainly men. Which have been the main challenges that you have faced in your roles, and what have been the opportunities? Nemo, would you like to start? Yes, for example, the decisions, most of the organization decisions are made by the men, so in the large meetings that we have, we don't give us time. They just give us very little time to talk. But when a man who's president of the organization wants to speak, give him all the time he wants. They have even taken the mic from us, and that makes us look bad in front of other women because we are the leaders, we are the speakers of the spokesperson of our organization. But these little things are very insulting, and when there's opportunity to make some presentations, the males always get all the time, and they are a lot organized, so we don't have the space to work together with them. And for us, that has been a hurdle. They're always give space to all the men. We in the association we have 3 women. There are some women leaders who are fighting for spaces, but if we didn't have this constant struggle of this great leading woman that we are here, we would not have any space for women. Only the men would be ahead of the organizations. But so for us, it's difficult. It's a complicated challenge, but we're working hard with the school, empowering women in our spaces so that there are women that have their own voice and that who can express their own thoughts as women. Thank you. Nemo, thank you very much for sharing. Berenice, we would like to hear your opinion. You have about 3 minutes, and Fanny has 3 minutes, and then we close. It's going to be very quick. I share the information that my sisters are giving me. Out of 100% of our participation as women, we wish that participation were 50-50. It's rather 30-70 our participation, because the main decisions, for the main decision making, we're not considered, but we're always there, as they say, always present, finding ways to be empowered and to be part. As an organization, obviously, we have some differences, but we've always been able to solve them well. We continue to work and opening up our own path to become empowered and reach our objective. And we continue to work. We have a group of women, with women who have character, who make decisions, and because of their mindset, and we hope that the mindset of the men changes, and this depends on us because we have to be able to impose our own decisions and also impose our character. Berenice, thank you very much. Now Fanny, dear Fanny. My experience is different because in my organization, I have many years as a leader, so they know me in all my country because I've always been a public official and I travel all my countries, so all the indigenous movement in Bolivia, they know me, so that's an advantage. So in the OPIAC, for example, I do not ask permission, I just share. I share what I'm going to do as a coordinator. I don't say, can you give me permission? No. I say, we have this for women and we're going to do it. It means we have to have a horizontal dialogue, not vertical, in order to avoid that subjugation and discrimination. Sometimes the language that women use of subjugation makes them treat us in that way. Not me. I'm always on the par with them, and I always remind the males, the indigenous, that the original law talks about men and women, that without women traditions are not practiced. So I believe that I give reason to Bernice. It depends on our own attitude in front of the situations. This is what it depends on what we do, and at some moment we must defend, have some rights be respected. But horizontal dialogue and traditional dialogue based on the origins is extremely important. It's very important to have that dialogue, and I do recommend to young women, and I know it's a difficult path, but I also come from a family of caciques and authorities where I never knew what it is to yield or to duck your head into any situation. This comes from our ancestors, so the strength of your ancestors is the strength so you can project towards the future. So you have to grab onto your traditions and defend yourself with your intercultural knowledge, so that this is very valuable to move forward. Thank you very much, Fanny. Thank you for your words. Now we just have a couple of minutes. If anybody would like to share something else, this is the time. Caroline.
We are about to finish the session. Si no hay para compartir,
If nobody else wants to share, I just have many ideas in my head. There are many things to do, but the big message is indigenous women of the Amazonia are ready, and they have been ready for a long time. What we now need are more opportunities and spaces so that they can implement and grow in their knowledge, in their wisdom, and as Fanny said, with everything that they inherited from their ancestors and their culture. So thank you for participating in this panel, Berenice, Caroline,
and Nemo y Fanny. Les agradezco.
Nemo, and Fanny. I thank you, and it has been a pleasure to share with you these ideas. So thanks to everyone who participated in this session, and I hope that I will find you in a coming event to continue to give value, create more opportunities to raise up the voices of women in the Amazonia in all 9 countries. Thank you very much. Thank you, Adriana. These are the spaces that all our sisters who are there need, and those in the community bases. Thank you very much for this opportunity. Thank you very much, Fanny. It was a pleasure. Thank you, Marcia. Thank you for taking us into account. And as Fanny said, these are spaces where we can come to increase our knowledge. Thank you. That's correct. Goodbye. Thank you. Good afternoon. Hasta luego a todos.